Hello, everyone. Welcome to SeniorOpedia, the everything how-to guide for seniors and caregivers. I'm Vera Falawala, your host for today's episode. Now, SeniorOpedia is going to have topics, whether already done or in the future, that apply universally, such as diabetes is diabetes, no matter where in the world you are. However, we are going to be also covering topics that are geography specific, especially when it comes to financial and legal. There's going to be some geographical variations that happen, especially things like Canada versus the US. So recently we did an episode on IPPs, individual pension plans, which is a tax program in Canada. It doesn't apply necessarily in the US. However, there is something similar in the US. And whenever we do something that's Canada specific, for example, we also want to do something that is American specific, that is similar in nature or the equivalent or even better. And that's for our American audience in our podcast. So today we have with us Rick Salmeron, who is a certified financial planner, a CFP, among other designations as well, to talk about cash balance plans in the U.S. Welcome, Rick.
Thank
How are
you.
you?
I am powerful, courageous, and joyful. Thank you for asking.
Nice to hear. Now, Rick, I grew up in Canada, but I've worked in the U.S. for quite some time, and I also have a U.S. business. But I've never heard of a cash balance plan. Am I kind of the only one that operates out of blinders, or is this something that's a well-kept national
No,
secret?
I wouldn't say it's a well-kept natural secret, although I would say that it's really a rare find because it's a really unique shoe size that fits a particular foot. All right. So cash balance plans, I would not call them as low-hanging fruit of the retirement plan tree spectrum, especially with, I would say, my age. I'm 61 years old, and even people even younger than myself. When we grew up, we really had no idea about any potential defined benefit plan like the cash balance plan. I would say my parents and even my parents' parents long ago, back in, I could be wrong, but the 40s, the 30s perhaps, but even prior to that, all that there was in existence were these defined benefit plans, meaning that if I was an employee at a company, my employer took care of a retirement plan for me. They had a set income that I could count on after I retired. They were responsible for it. They took care of it, not me. It was not on my shoulders, on my employer's shoulders. So it was my employer's duty to set aside whatever money it required over the stretch of time that I was employed there to give me my promised pension. This was, again, 100 years ago, maybe even longer. But those plans became very tedious, very expensive, especially for the employers. We lived longer, our health got better. So our employers back in the
Mhm.
40s were scratching their chin thinking, on average, our actuaries say an average lifespan is in the late 60s, early 70s tops. So therefore, the financial obligation that we have as an employer to our employees is manageable. It's not impossible, but it's manageable. But as time went on, our lifespans became longer, health became longer, and now the burden of these defined benefit plans became harder and more severe. So a defined benefit plan back then was the popular thing. It became less and less and less popular for the economic reasons and the business reasons. These were not plans that were required, broad spectrum. These were plans that were offered up as a benefit by choice by the employers. So as time went on, defined benefit plans like today, cash balance plan or an IPP in Canada, perhaps, they started to not disappear, but fade. They fade pretty fast. And they were replaced by what are called defined contribution plans, where we're not defining the benefit at the end of some rainbow. We're defining the contribution. Now the employers are putting the responsibility on the employee, the person, the individual. A defined contribution plan, the tables turn. The employee, the person now is in charge of making the contribution. No idea what that series of contributions over time will accumulate. all we know and all we have to work with is here's how much you can put away up to certain limits, and whatever happens, happens. So defined contribution plans come full circle with your original question. Defined contribution plans for my generation, generations earlier, this is still the most popular choice for a retirement plan. That doesn't mean defined benefit plans are gone. They're not.
There are some employers, like perhaps in the government or whatever, that still
Yes.
have those
Yes.
perks.
The security system with the federal government of the United States is an example of a defined benefit plan. We're defined an income stream at a particular age when we choose. So, and then there's still some of these old age pension plans that are still alive and still in effect today. But like I said earlier, it's a rare find.
And so where does this cash balance plan come in?
Don't ask me why they call it cash balance. I don't know. But the important thing is that a cash balance plan is an example of, I would say, today's defined benefit plan. And the defined benefit plan for the individual or the small business owner, you don't need to be a large behemoth corporation to establish a cash balance plan. You can be a solopreneur. You can be an employer with 3 employees or 5 or 10 or so on. So cash balance plans are frankly a way to supercharge an individual's retirement asset for their personal retirement. And the reason that is because it's usually the sweet spot is for an individual who's in their, say, 50-year-old to, I would say, 62, maybe 65, that type of range. That person, say, is very successful. They spent all of their time and energy and effort on building their business and building it up to a certain stage, but every single dollar and penny has gone towards building up that business. And now they're really starting to climb the mountain. In fact, maybe they're on top of the mountain and they're starting to really feel the success that they built with this entrepreneurship of them, and their revenue is strong. But now he or she is looking around and, you know what, this is the only asset that I have, which is great. It's a great asset, but I'm thinking about my retirement now. Yes, I can sell my business, and that's a tremendous slice of the pie. But is there another way that I can be utilizing cash flow, that I can be utilizing tax deductible contributions at a very large scale to build up another asset so that my retirement pot of gold can be so strong I can retire like a king or a queen? And that's where a cash balance plan can fit in.
So is it for anybody, or is it just for the business owners, the professionals like doctors and lawyers, et cetera?
Yeah, it can be for anybody. However, that anybody has to really fit a certain criteria because of the
Which are
mandatory requirements of a cash balance plan. They're pretty strict. A person can establish a cash balance plan and literally put aside hundreds of thousands of dollars in 1 year on a tax deductible basis, year in and year out, because we're defining a benefit. As an example, let's say I'm 55 years old. I'm a business owner. I have 5 employees. I have no retirement plan. I'm making really good income. And now I'm looking for a place to sock away some money, and B, a place to get some tax deductions at the same time. And I see the defined contribution space. I see the IRAs. I see the 401ks. And those are nice. But you know, the maximum I can put away these days in, say, a 401k is in the $30,000 a year range, which is better than nothing. But if I want to build up $1 million pot of gold, it's going to take me quite a long time and cross my fingers, some great market returns to build that up over 10, 15, 20 years. So a cash balance plan can come in to, let's say, save the day, or the cash balance plan is saying, fine, you're 55 years old. We are going to define a benefit, and that benefit will be $1 million at age 70 or age 65. Now, we, being the team on your side, we're going to reverse engineer. What is it going to take you, Mr. or Mrs. Business Owner at age 55, to put away every single year and have an assumed earnings rate over time that we can land the plane looking at $1 million waiting for you into this plan.
Right. So even if you are not a business owner, because some of these senior executive CEOs and
hmm
CTOs, et cetera, they make quite a bit of money on their own. And so even they could put it away. They don't have to be a business
Well,
owner.
you would have to be a business owner.
Right.
If I'm employed by XYZ company, say IBM or Apple Computer, and I'm an executive and I'm making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, that's great. However, my employer has a retirement plan for me. It might be a defined benefit, doubtful, but it could be a defined contribution of some kind. But I'm getting paid a very high, nice wage, yet I'm an employee of this employer. The only way that I can, in that space, participate in a cash balance plan is if my employer is doing a cash balance plan for me. Okay. So,
Okay. So you can't do
no,
both. You can only do
yeah,
one.
I
You
would,
can have a 401k full cash balance plan or an IRA.
yeah,
Is that
yeah, yeah.
I'm understanding?
Employers many times have 401ks paired with a cash balance plan sometimes. But again, there's two scenarios that I want to make sure that I'm clear on. There's I'm an employee of an employer, and I'm at the mercy of whatever retirement plan they offer to me. On the other hand, I am
Mhm.
an entrepreneur. I have my own business. I am the employer. That's the space, that's the world where I can decide if I want, I can create a cash balance plan for myself.
I see.
All right. And that's really advantageous for that person, not so much for the employee. The employee, an employer is frankly, this is a tax planning conversation right now, but they're really kind of limited on what they can do for their personal taxes and also their personal retirement. But when it comes to the self-employed business owner, the options can be very widespread.
So is this something that somebody can do on their own, or do they require professional help to put it all
Yes, it's
together?
really recommended professional help. This is, as I said earlier, this is not the low-hanging fruit on the tree where it's easy just to pick it off the tree and carry it on yourself. These are complicated plans. These require filing a tax return every single year. It requires an actuarial calculation to see from day one to every single year, are we on target to reach that $1 million pot of gold that's defined in the plan of the benefit that you're expected to receive at age 65? If there are other employees involved, there needs to be a calculation of how much contribution go towards those other employees, because a cash balance plan must include all eligible employees. It cannot be something that I can just carve out for myself as a business owner and exclude all of the rest of my employees.
Okay.
So that's also very important. So like I said, it's a shoe size that fits a particular foot. When the fit is there, it's great. But if it's not there, it can really be a painful experience.
So unlike in Canada where you set it up well, not yourself, but you seek professional help, but it's for you, whether you're an employer or not, it's not applied across the board to all the
No.
employees that you might
Okay.
have working for
Okay.
you.
Yeah. It would be applied to all employees involved of a company in this case in the United States for sure. And that kind of goes down to, this is not by any means a requirement, but you can imagine how this would be a better fit if I am a business owner and I only have one employee or two or three, or not a lot, or maybe it's just me. It's that smaller population of employees that really tends to be a better fit because it becomes less complex. There's less obligations from the employer, the small business owner standpoint of making contributions to not only themselves, but also everyone else. Okay. When you're talking about an employer who's got a small business owner who has 50 employees or 100 employees, it's perfectly fine, but it really becomes
Mhm.
financially very cumbersome to the employer because they must include everyone at some level. Everyone will enjoy some kind of defined benefit. It's one and all is how it goes with the cash balance plan.
And so what happens if the markets either tank or take
Yeah.
off
hmm
for the investments that you have
Yeah.
in there? I'm presuming that you could individual stocks and things, you're
Hmm.
selecting what you want in
Yes.
there?
Hmm. Yes. Good question. Yes. When the plan is funded day one, but every single year up to the end game, the end point. Like I said, there's a let's press pause and assess. How are we doing? Are we on target? The money inside the cash balance plan meant for everyone. Is it on target for that end of the rainbow, say hypothetical $1 million, if that's what we're shooting for? Was it invested in a great way that, gosh, it grew even more than what we thought? So if that's the case, that can be seen as good news because that obligation, that year's obligation of contribution, is probably going to be less. So that could be good news to the employer. On the other hand, the market tanked. There was another mini Great Depression and the markets fall by 40%. And therefore, the cash balance plan assets fall by 40%, as an example. That means,
Like
yeah, like
2008, when
2008. It
things,
happened once, it can happen again. So, so the business owner needs to be aware that the amount required, not optional, required to contribute to the cash balance plan every single year is recalculated. So it becomes a moving target. We hope that it's not moving too much, but sometimes it can. Assets can shrink and contract, which means that year we have to make up for lost ground because we have to get on target. That's the rules of the game.
so let's assume that it's set up. I now retire. I can start pulling out of
Mhm.
this plan, but as I am doing so, as another year or two goes by, at that point, tanks, my employer no longer has an obligation to contribute to it.
Right. At
What
the end of the
happens?
cash balance plan, say the business, we're done. I'm at age 65. We've accomplished the mission. At that point, the plan is terminated. And people then receive, this is usually most all the time how it works. People receive their lump sum amount that's due to them from the entire plan balance. The plan is terminated. Me as the business owner, I receive my amount. I get to put it into my own individual retirement account. All of the other participating employees, their vested balance, same thing. Those amounts will be different than mine. Everyone's will be different to some amount, but when the plan terminates,
Yeah.
the money is split up into the even pieces that they're supposed to go to the individuals, and everyone carries on with their own slice of this pie and does with it as they wish.
And now it becomes my responsibility
Yeah,
thereafter to maintain it,
yeah,
manage
yeah.
it, et
Now
cetera.
it's a different world.
And
Now it's entered into the IRA world or the some other kind of world, but it's up to that person now to handle. Do I start taking money out now? Do I have to? Should I? And so on. Those kind of personal finance questions then to enter into play.
so when it's terminated, there's a full distribution of all the monies that are in there to each and every participating employee.
That's
Is that
correct.
correct? And that goes into their individual IRAs. And then from there, it's up to them to kind of manage it and go from
Exactly.
there.
Exactly.
What are the tax benefits and the tax implications
Mhm.
of such a plan?
Here's where some of the power of the cash balance plan comes into play. Whereas in that defined contribution world of IRAs, simple IRAs, 401ks, profit sharing plans, there's a limit to how much a person can contribute into those. It can be as high as 30-ish thousand dollars these days. So, which is not bad. However, for many people, that can be very frustrating. The cash balance plan can be potentially much, much higher. It can be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars every single year. Both are tax deductible, a defined contribution or a cash balance plan. But with a cash balance plan, if I can put away $350,000 into my cash balance plan because the situation calls for that, every dollar is tax deductible. It's incredible. It's hard to believe to some. I didn't know that. I thought that I could only put away $8,000 in an IRA or $30,000 in a 401k. That's all true. But those are the rules of the game with those defined contribution plans. Not the case with the cash balance. So every contribution that goes into, yes, the business owner, but also the other participating employees is 100% tax deductible every single year. The money is invested in a manner, and that is the responsibility of the employer That doesn't mean that they have to themselves flip on an E-Trade account or something like that and start investing the money. Usually they hire an investment advisor to handle that part. But that money, yes, is invested, and any kind of earnings or growth of those is also tax deferred. So as the money goes in, tax deductible, and as it grows, tax deferred. Okay. You had a question, I think.
I was just confused about
Hmm.
something here. If the employer is the one who's setting up the plan and making the contributions to
Yes.
the plan, so that way it's sort of even for everybody that's participating, how does that tie in with an individual who is capable of putting in that extra 100? I can't imagine that an employer is going to put hundreds of thousands of dollars towards individual people's plans.
An individual can receive $100,000 hypothetically only if they're a participant in a cash balance plan and the actuarial numbers require that that person receive $100,000 that year. And 99% of the time, that person is the business owner, because the business owner is earning the highest wage. They are the older in the employee census list. So there's not as much time for that individual to reach the $1 million amount in 10 years time, hypothetically. Okay. Does that make sense?
Sort of. Again, it sounds like it's a universal plan for all the employees. There's X amount of
Mhm.
dollars that are contributed
Yeah.
in, but the way you're describing it, it sounds like each person may be able to contribute different amounts
No, each person,
from their own
no,
pocket.
not from their own pocket. It's completely employer contribution. So a cash balance plan by itself, an employer is writing the check. It's like one check, but that one check is being allocated in their appropriate amounts to all the active participants, the business owner and his or her employee or employees. Okay. So if, say,
Okay. So
$200,000,
if it's allocated
yes,
proportionately, I'm presuming you're
correct,
saying,
correct.
okay, is there a calculation as to how much?
Exactly. There's a calculation as to how much. So, as an example, year number one, business owner makes a $200,000 contribution into his or her cash balance plan. That, that if business owner has 5 employees, including him or herself, of the $200,000, it could be that 150,000 of that goes to the business owner, and the other remaining 50 is spread across the other 4 remaining employees, obviously in smaller amounts. But that one amount goes to all of the participating employees. And every contribution is, again, this $200,000, a tax deductible contribution. It goes to the business owner in a larger chunk, and smaller chunks to the other 4 participating employees. And this happens every single
So
year.
each of those other participating employees also get the tax
Yeah,
deferral on that
yeah.
amount.
If I'm one of those 4
Okay.
employees, all I have to do is show up to work. My boss created this plan for my benefit. This is great. How generous of him or her. All I have to do is do my job. And the next thing I know, I'm receiving this contribution, almost feeling out of the sky, because it's not coming from my pocket, it's coming from my employer's pocket into my cash balance plan account. That's kind of nice. I don't get taxed on that at that moment. It's being invested in a manner that I don't control. My employer is taking care of that. But like, gosh, I can see it on my statement. It's growing. So that's kind of cool. That growth is not taxed to me either.
Does that mean that if I got an inheritance or something of that nature and I come into some extra cash, that I can give that to my employer to put into this
No,
and then reallocate
no,
differently
no,
between the
no.
employees?
If you receive an inheritance from some uncle, some external personal event, great. Congratulations. You won the lottery. Great. Wonderful. Congratulations. But that's a lump sum of money that you'll have to deal on your own in another completely different manner. This is not something that you can contribute into a cash balance plan. At risk of being a little more information to this, cash balance plans by themselves is how I just described. Yet there's many, many, many employers who take a cash balance plan and they add it on top of a 401k plan or another existing defined contribution plan. All right. So many times both of these are going on at the same time. And why that is
Right.
advantageous to the employers on the cash balance plan side, the employer can use the numbers here on the 401k to help combine and soften the obligation of the defined benefit over here with the cash balance. So there's so in that example, I as the employee, I'm participating in the 401k, not the cash balance, but I'm doing the 401k. But I've also got this cash balance account going on in tandem of that. All right. So I had to throw that out there.
Well, it sounds very
Yeah.
complicated to me.
I know.
Kind of simple, gone over my head a little
I
bit
know.
here, but obviously there is a strategy there that helps people who are in certain situations
Yeah.
save more for their
Yeah. It's really,
retirement. And that's really what this
really
podcast
what it's
is all
about.
about, is trying to bring that to the
Mhm.
surface, make people aware of these things, because you don't
Yeah.
know what you
You don't
don't
know what you
know.
don't know.
And
Exactly.
and that's why it's so important to have to work with an expert such as yourself in this category, so that you could help direct people in the
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
manner. You can help put the right strategies into place and whatnot. From a planning standpoint, do you have to plan this really far in advance, or is it just like 10 years before you retire? Or
Well,
what are you thinking?
it's really best for the person who finds themselves, gosh, I need to make up for some lost ground here. I'm age 55, I'm age 60. I spent all this time on the business or on the family, on the kids. I completely forgot about this part of my life. Yeah. The normal options of the IRA and even this 401k, okay, fine, but it's just not going to be enough. I need to do something more than that. So this is where a cash balance can
Mhm.
really come into play, because I can not only put away $30,000, I can put away 100,000 as the business owner, as the employer. I can put away that much into this plan going to me, because that's how the numbers work. That's how the actuarial calculations work out. So we're using the
Hmm.
power and the benefit of the, no pun intended, defined benefit of a cash balance to really supercharge a person's retirement asset. There's one thing to drive a car when you're driving towards saving for your retirement, and that can be done through the standard defined contribution ways. But it's another way to really put on a rocket ship engine on a SpaceX rocket and do it in a very, very fast way using a cash balance plan,
Right.
if the fit is right.
And then primarily, if you're a small business owner, mid-sized business owner,
Mhm.
that's where this is going to apply the
Yes.
most, I would
Yes.
think.
Exactly. And with good cash
Okay.
flow, because it is an obligation. This is the biggest turnoff of cash balance plans. You can't just, oh, this sounds great. Let me do it this year. And then next year comes around, I just don't feel like doing it this year. Can't be done.
So once you've made it
Yes.
happen, you've got to be committed
It's
to do it
it is a
every year.
commitment. It is a commitment.
Right.
Otherwise, the IRS, the government's going to say, wait a minute. You just did this for this 1 year thing, didn't you? That's not the that's not the idea behind this. The idea behind this is to reach for a defined benefit. And if you're really serious about having that defined benefit, Mr. or Mrs. Business Owner, this is what you have to do. You must do this.
But even your business can have
Yeah,
ups and
sure can.
downs.
It can have ups and downs.
Next year, we may not have enough cash
Yeah,
flow to be
yeah.
able to keep this going.
It's very possible to pause a cash balance plan. There are certainly circumstances where dire straits, emergencies happen. That does happen, and that can be done. There's not a hard and fast rule for that. You can only pause it 1 year or 2 years, but there is some slight flexibility in the extreme. Oh my gosh, a hurricane hit our business instance, where you can delay. Yet at the same time, keep in mind, if you delay 1 year, that just means the following year you're looking for a larger than normal contribution, because we got to make up for the previous year that you decided to delay. It has to be the right fit. And one of those characteristics, in my view, is a healthy cash flowing business. one that has got good cash flow that can handle this obligation in good years and in bad. That's not completely required, but it really, really should be required in my view for this to work.
Most people, I would say, don't have a financial planner that they work with. But whenever you are meeting with a client that is working with you and engaging you for those advice and strategies, is that one of the things that you
Oh,
look at
absolutely.
and make
Absolutely. Now
recommendations?
there are gazillion financial advisors out there, and you when you're working with one, you want to be working with one who has got this radar active, like you said earlier. And I'm included. I don't know what I don't know, right? I walk around with blinders too, but that's why we are all experts in our own respect industries and fields, right? So as the business
Right.
owner, you're really good at your business. This is why you're successful. Keep on doing that. Yet you don't have a capacity to press pause on that life and suddenly become a money expert anytime soon. You want to be making sure that you're working with an advisor, a team who is aware of these types of things, who is also looking out for your best interests, not somebody else's best interests. So I would
Right.
want to know, if I'm speaking with a business owner, I'm not trying to think, gosh, can I cram a cash balance plan down this person's throat? I want to see, is this a possible fit? And if it is, hey, let's
Right.
talk about this because I can add value to that business owner's life one way or another. Whether we decide to do it or not is another question. But the fact that I'm looking out for that person's life and their well-being can be very, very meaningful. That's the kind of relationship that you want to have with your financial advisor, with your tax planner, and so on, in my opinion.
Fair. If you don't share the right information or if you don't ask the right questions, you're not going to get the right
Yeah,
answers.
exactly. Exactly.
Right. So sharing the information is critical so that everybody on the team knows exactly what the
For
circumstances
sure.
are. And so that way they can put the proper path in place in order to achieve your financial future.
100%.
This is a complicated scenario. Anything financial seems to be quite complicated, especially when it deals with taxes. And so if somebody had questions or needed assistance, where could they get a hold
Well,
of
they
you?
can find me online. My website is salmeronfinancial.com, or search my name on LinkedIn, Facebook, but you can connect with me on LinkedIn for the most part. But reach out to me that way. I'm happy to engage in a conversation and see if there's a way I can add value to your life for sure.
Thank you very much, Rick, for your time and expertise and sharing this information with us. Again, we don't know what we don't know. Now I know a little
Yes.
bit more
Yes.
than what I
It's
did
good to
before.
know that at the end of the day, I became smarter some way or another, isn't it?
I don't know if I became smarter, but certainly a little
For
bit more
sure.
knowledge.
Yeah.
Thank you very much again for your time.
If you like this episode, then subscribe, like, share, and most importantly, register for upcoming notifications at SeniorOpedia.com.